This lesson is using web fonts. In this lesson, you will learn how to add web fonts to increase your typeface options and improve the look of your pages. Specifically, you will use the new Adobe Edge web fonts integrated into Dreamweaver CC. Before we begin, you will want to create a Dreamweaver site for your BB8 lessons files. Once that's done, you will open 08 Edge Utopia.html. Using this file, we will add an Adobe Edge web font to style our sidebar headings. Adobe Edge web fonts are a free online font library provided by Adobe for users of the Creative Cloud. To work with the Adobe Edge web fonts, we'll go to Modify, Manage Fonts. From this window, we can work with Adobe Edge web fonts, local web fonts, and create custom font stacks. Custom font stacks can be comprised of Adobe Edge web fonts and local web fonts. From the Adobe Edge Web Fonts tab, we have access to a library of web fonts made possible by contributions from Adobe, Google, and designers around the world. The fonts are served by Typekit and free for your use on your website. In the Adobe Edge Web Fonts dialog box, we can search for a font by name. For example, Bubble. We'll bring up Bubbler and Bubblegum. We can filter fonts by fonts recommended for headings and paragraphs, or by typeface. Sans serif fonts, serif fonts, slab fonts, script fonts, black letter fonts, monospace fonts, handmade fonts, and decorative fonts. Since our objective is to style our sidebar heading fonts, we'll choose the first option, fonts recommended for headings. When working with Adobe Edge web fonts, you can choose multiple fonts simply by clicking the check mark in the upper right corner. For our purposes, we're going to work with League Gothic, so let's select that one. After choosing our font, clicking Done will also indicate that we agree to Adobe Edge Web Font Service Terms of Use. At this point, the Adobe Edge web font is available for use. All we need to do now is create a style using this font. Making sure you have one of the headings selected in the sidebar, let's collapse our Files panel by double-clicking it, and choose Styles CSS from our Sources panel, and click Add Selector. Dreamweaver's a little too specific here, so we'll delete container from the beginning of it, leaving us just sidebar DL DT. After changing the selector to read #sidebar DL DT, press Enter or Return. Now we can choose our web font by clicking on Set Font Family, where we see League Gothic indicated as a web font with the WF logo, and clicking on League Gothic will apply the League Gothic font to our sidebar DLDT. You may notice that the sidebar didn't change at this point. That's because most web fonts don't display properly unless we're in Live View. So let's click the Live View button. And now we can see that our sidebar headings rendered using the League Gothic font that we chose. By choosing a web font from a font library like the Adobe Edge Web Fonts library, you no longer have to manage your fonts, meaning you no longer have to ensure that you have proper licenses to use the font on the web, nor do you have to ensure that you have the additional files needed for italic and bold weights. When a user views your website, if they don't have the League Gothic font installed, your page will simply download it from the font library. To see how this works, let's get out of Live View and view the source code. On line 8 of our code, we can see that Dreamweaver added a JavaScript file from use.edgefonts.net for our League Gothic font. This ensures that our web page knows where to download League Gothic in order to use it within our page. In this lesson, we learned how to use an Adobe Edge web font and apply that font to our website. Font libraries like Adobe Edge web fonts open up a wealth of possibilities for typeface options. This concludes the lesson using web fonts.